Hello, welcome to our YouTube class. In this video, I shall be teaching you the second chapter of Civics, that is democracy. What is democracy? Democracy is a system of government that is elected by the people through universal adult franchise. So democracy is a form of government that is elected by the people through universal adult franchise. Universal means that applies to all, irrespective of caste, gender, social background, etc. And franchise means right to vote. So all the adult citizens in the country will have the right to vote. In our country, India, any person who reaches the age 18 years become adult. So once you reach the age 18 years, you have the right to vote. So democracy is a form of government that is elected by the people. It is also popularly known as by the people, of the people, and for the people. By the people means this form of government is elected by the people. Of the people, the power of this government lies with the people. And the government is dedicated to work for the welfare of the people. Now let's see some of the key features of democracy. Now democracy is a form of government that is elected by the people. Now in this election by which the democratic government is elected should be free and fair. And what do we understand by free and fair election? Now the election in which the ruling party has a chance of losing, and the election in which the voters are not intimidated or threatened to vote for a particular candidate or particular political party, where the voters have their own free choice or will. They can vote for any candidate or any political party that they desire, is known as free and fair election. So the election has to be free and fair, where the ruling party has the chance of losing and the voters are not threatened to vote for a particular political party. And each voter has one vote and each vote has one value. So every voter has one vote and every vote has one value. So the key features of democracy are: the government is elected by the people. The government is dedicated to work for the welfare of the people. Why should the government be dedicated to work for the welfare of the people? Because the government knows that if it does not deliver the promises and aspirations of the people, it will not get re-elected in the next election. So to stay in power, to get re-elected, the government is dedicated to work for the welfare of the people. So the power entirely lies with the people. But people only choose the government, people only elect the government through vote, and the final decision in a democracy is taken by the government. In the process of decision making, people of the country do not participate at all. The final decision of the country lies with the government. So the people's role is only limited to electing the government through vote. So that is also another feature of democracy. And the powers of the government, the relationships between the government and the citizens are well specified in the constitutions of every democratic country. Now, nothing is entirely good on earth, so we cannot say that democracy is an unmixed joy, is an unmixed blessing. It has its own demerits as well as its merits. And as far as the merits or positivities of democracies are concerned, democracy involves lots of debates and discussions. Lots of people are involved before the final decision is taken. So it has a possibility of reducing the differences and conflicts in the country. There may be diverse people in the country. There may be people of various castes, various religions, various languages in a country like India. And it is the democratic government that involves people from all walks of life, people from all religions, all languages, all cultures. So it is the democratic government that can best take decisions for the entire country, as it involves lots of debates and discussions. So only after debates and discussions can we reach a proper decision that suits every one in the country. And democracy also enhances or increases the dignity of the people. Because when people think that they have an influence in the election of the government, it is they who elect the government, it increases their dignity. It also establishes equality. So the country where people have equality, where people have influence in electing the government, should be the best form of government. And the form of government that is dedicated to work for the welfare of the people, that must be better than any other forms of government. But as for its demerits, democracy or democratic government takes a long time to take the decisions, as it involves lots of people, as it involves debates and discussions. So it delays in taking the final decisions. So that is its biggest disadvantage, that the process of taking the final decision, the process of making laws takes a lots of time. And in the election, we have learned that the election must be free and fair, but many countries, the election is far from free and fair. It leads to corruption, it leads to rigging in booths, it leads to threatening the people. So these are some aspects of negativities of democracy, that it may involve corruption, it may involve conflicts. Any political party can resort to unfair means to win the election. But still, democracy is more preferable to other forms of government. The reason why democracy is more preferable to other forms of government is because the government remains accountable to the people. That means the government has a responsibility towards the people, because it is the people who are electing the government. So the people of the country are actually the employer of the government. So we have to be accountable, we have to be responsible to our employer. So we, the people, are the employer of the government. So naturally, the government has to be accountable, has to be responsible to us. Because if our aspirations, if our needs, if our hopes and the promises that the government, that the party had made before they came to power are not met and not delivered, we will not elect the government in the next election. So we can change the government if we think that our promises, our aspirations were not met. The promises that the party made before coming to election, before coming to power, they have not delivered those promises after coming to power. And in the 5 years of rule, they have not been able to rule the country properly. They have not been able to reduce unemployment. Then we may choose another political party. So that is why democracy is better than other forms of government, because we have options. We have options to change the government. And the government remains dedicated towards working for the welfare of the people. Now, dear students, in exams, you may face a question: what are the merits and demerits of democracy? And how do you write the answer of this question? Now, as for the demerits of democracy, which I have told you a little bit, number one, as in democracy, the rulers change time and again, so it may lead to instability in the government. The ruler stays in power for a certain period of time, say for about 5 years, and rulers change from time to time, so it may lead to instability. Number two, as democracy involves a lot of persons, a lot of debates and discussions, so the final decision may take a longer time to be taken. So in democracy, the decision-making process gets delayed because it involves a lot of debates and discussions. Number three, in democracy, the rulers get elected by the people through vote. So the political party may resort to some unfair practices or unfair means to win in elections. Number four, democratic government may not know the interests of all the people in a vast country, in a diverse country like India. So the decisions and the policies that the government will take may not suit all the sections or all the communities of people. So it may lead to bad policies or bad decisions, as the elected leaders may not be aware of the interests of all the sections of people, all the communities of people. The government may take a policy, the government may make a law, but it may not be beneficial for a particular community, and it may lead to controversies. And in democracy, there is no scope for morality, as the political parties may take some unfair practices or unfair means to win in elections. So these are some of the demerits or disadvantages of democracy. Now, as for the merits or advantages of democracy, number one, the democratic government has to remain accountable to the people. To illustrate this point, an example has been given in your NCERT book, that is, in 1958 to 1968, a famine occurred in China. Now, at that time, India's financial condition was not better than the China's financial condition, but India had a democratic government that responded to the food scarcity in India, and the government helped the Indian farmers to acquire high yielding varieties of seeds that would produce, more crops. So the government helped to bring about green revolution in India, which increased food production in India, that catered to the increasing food demand. But that was not the case in China. The Chinese government did not respond to the food scarcity in the country. So the democratic government has to be accountable to the people. That is its biggest advantage. Number two, the decision-making process is much better in democracy. The quality of decision-making is much better in democracy. It improves the quality of decision-making as it involves lots of people, lots of debates and discussions. Now, this point is both its merit and its demerit. Now, as democracy involves a lot of people, as democracy involves debates and discussions, so the decision-making process gets delayed. So this can be said one of its disadvantage, and it can also be said one of its advantage as well, because the quality of decision gets improved, and it reduces the differences and conflicts in the country, as democracy involves a vast number of people from all the sections and all the communities of a country. The next advantage of democracy is we have the option to correct ourselves, to correct our decisions. Now, democracy is not a magical solution. The government may bring about some wrong policies in the country. So we have the options to debate on the policies, on the laws that the government brings about in the country. And we may change the government, we may change the ruler in the next election if we see that our aspirations were not fulfilled. The government failed to deliver its promises, the government failed to fulfill our promises, then we may change the ruler. We may stage protests or launch demonstrations against any policies taken by the government. So we have the option to correct ourselves in democracy. So either the rulers have to change, or the people will change the ruler. Next, democracy is far better than all forms of government, as it gets elected by the people. So people's dignity gets enhanced. Democracy enhances or increases the dignity of the people, as the people has an influence in the election of the ruler. So these are the merits and demerits of democracy. Now, there can be true democratic government and make-believe democratic government. Now, what is the difference between true democratic government and make-believe democratic government? That means the government that outwardly looks democratic, but in reality, it is not so. It pretends to be democratic, but in reality, it is not so. For example, in China, the NPC, National People's Congress, is the only authority that can elect the government, and it allows the Communist Party of China and its allied parties to contest in the election. So even though elections are held at regular intervals in China, but it is only the Communist Party that has the right to contest in the election. But that is not the true picture of democracy. A democracy would allow the opposition parties to function. A democracy would allow all the parties to contest in the election. It has to be, and the election has to be free and fair. That means the ruling party may lose the election, but in China it is not so. Though elections are held at regular interval, but it is only the Communist Party that can contest in the election. Another example was given, that was in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe African National Union, Patriotic Front, that is the party that came into power in 1980 when Zimbabwe got their independence from the white supremacy. But the party leader, Robert Mugabe, he changed the constitutions time and again to increase his power. He put ban upon the opposition parties in staging protest or demonstrations. The journalists were harassed and attacked if they broadcast any news that went against the ruling party, that went against the government. That is not the true picture of democracy. All the opposition parties will have full freedom to protest against any governmental policies. So these two examples show that only holding elections does not mean that the country is a democratic country. A true democratic country must give true freedoms to all its people. The opposition party will have the freedom to work. The opposition parties can stage protest against any governmental policies that may seem to be going against the interest of the people. And most importantly, the press must have full freedom to broadcast any news that it like. So press freedom is very important in democracy. So media is called the fourth pillar of democracy because it is through media we get all the news, all the informations about the workings and activities of the government. But media has to be careful that it bring us unbiased, honest news without any vested interest. So free press is one aspect of democracy. Now, as for the difference between democratic government and non-democratic government, such as dictatorial government or autocratic government. Now, in democracy, the ruler gets elected by the people. So democracy means rule by the people, but people themselves do not rule. The people rule themselves through the elected representatives. People elect their representatives, and these representatives rule on behalf of the people. Whereas in dictatorship, the ruler comes to power by its own might and stay in power as long as it chooses to be or as long as it has might. So if for democracy we can say it is by the people, of the people, or for the people, and for dictatorship or for autocracy we can say it is might is right, and the dictatorial government can only be overthrown by another dictatorial ruler, by another stronger power which can be dictatorial once again. So I hope you have understood the basics of democracy, and let me know your understanding of democracy by writing the answer of this question in the comment box. Why do we need democracy? And I would be happy to respond to your answers. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you have understood it. And if you have found this video useful, don't forget to subscribe the video and press on the notification icon to get regular updates of the upcoming video. Thank you for watching.